Alright, so thank you for visiting my channel. Today we're going to be talking about Life at the Bottom by Theodore Dalrymple. Life at the Bottom, subtitle, The Worldview That Makes the Underclass. So this is a pretty interesting book, I have to say. Just initial impressions. I think this is recommended by Funky Times, so shout out to him for a good book recommendation. This is actually, it's a good, well-written book. I mean, it's not like reading dense philosophy. It's not like reading a history book. It's just, it kind of has the New York Times bestseller kind of narrative vibe, but this guy, Theodore Dalrymple, he's a doctor, and he's very intelligent, very good writer, just very entertaining. The way he writes, it's I'm trying to say who it's reminiscent of, some type of contemporary writer. It'll come to me at some point, but this is a great book. If you're trying to, red pill your parents, this is a great book to show to them. I think I'm definitely gonna show this book to my parents or buy them a copy for birthday or something. I always like to try to give my parents based books, because that's an easy way to change their perspectives, because they're not going to take your word for it, but they will take a New York Times bestseller's word for it. I got my mom reading Death of the West by Patrick Buchanan, and she loves it, so who would have thought? So that's just a little tangent, but yes, this is a very, very good book, very well written, and it's mostly a series of essays. So as far as how this discussion is going to go, it's not going to be totally structured. I think I'm going to talk about each essay individually, and since it is so much and such a wide berth of content, I'm not going to go too deep into it. But there's a lot of really interesting stuff here. Honestly, I think everybody should read this book because it's very easy to read. I mean, this is honestly one of the longer books that we've read, but it goes down very easily. Background on Theodore. He's a doctor, and he works in impoverished areas. So he's seen all of the lowest dregs of society and what gets them into the hospital, which could be anything from overdoses to getting beaten by your partner to obesity, all of these different things that seem to affect the underclass more so than other people. So the very first chapter is called Seeing is Not Believing, which is a great essay that talks about how you have this bourgeois liberal class that hears about the problems of the underclass, and they do not really take seriously how prevalent these problems are. You talk to them about suicides, violence, overdoses, all of these things, and they sort of think that it's either greatly exaggerated or it's not happening, or if it is happening, it's not really a problem. And he's here saying, I'm a member of this educated bourgeois class. I'm a doctor, but I associate with these people every single day, and I can tell you it is very bad. It is not good. It's not getting better. In fact, it's only getting worse, and there's nothing that is being done by the government, by the bourgeois class, by any of this that is actually helping them out of their situation. In fact, it's digging them deeper into the hole. And you can tell that to these people, and they're just in blissful denial. So I'd say at the very surface, this book is a critique of this kind of upper class liberal mentality. Lord Shogun says right here, it is important to note that the underclass he speaks of isn't race-based, and they aren't poor. He says so in the introduction. Well, they are poor. That is true. I mean, you have to acknowledge that. But one thing that is important I didn't mention, this is happening in the UK. So he's in the UK. So you're going to have much less of a racial aspect as opposed to if this book were being written by somebody in the United States. So UK, most of these essays are written in the 90s, so it was much less diverse than America today or even UK today. So you're looking at a majority white population, which means that the underclass is also going to be majority white. But you still see a lot of parallels between the white underclass in the UK and the black underclass in America. But with that said, this is not racial at all. So he doesn't really talk in racial terms or anything like that. So that was the first essay, was Seeing is Not Believing. Then the next one was the knife went in. So the knife went in refers to how these underclass people describe their crimes. So rather than having agency, saying, I stabbed him, they would say, well, the knife went into his chest, right? So it's absolving themselves of any kind of agency over the situation. It was an act of fate that had to happen for various reasons. And he said this is a coping mechanism that most of the underclass uses. And they use phrases like, my head went, which just means you got really angry and decided to fight somebody, as if it were totally inevitable, like you didn't have the choice to avoid that fight. You were put into a situation where you needed to brutally beat somebody or stab them or beat your wife or whatever these circumstances were. Yes, and then a Funky Clock says, it's not the real me. Exactly, they say it's this alternate personality that is committing the act rather than themselves. So, once again, absolving their true self of any responsibility for what's going on. And once again, if you're stuck in this mentality, you are never going to create active change in your life. You are not going to seize agency. You are not going to make the proper steps towards improvement. You are going to always be the victim of circumstance as well as the victim of society. Next, he talks about Goodbye Cruel World. Now, this is an essay about suicides, and this is a very interesting statistic he brought up. It was something like of 10 suicide attempts, 9 are not successful. So only 1 in 10 are successful suicide attempts. And he says this is not for lack of trying, because it's not that hard to kill yourself if you really want to. He's saying that the other 9 don't actually want to kill themselves. It's rather a way to get out of anything or a cry for help. But also ways to abuse the government, right? If you can go to the hospital and get things provided for you, and also other times, sometimes he was saying the government would even put you in housing if you went to the hospital via an overdose. And just a few comments here. Siddhartha says, would you say underclass is more of a mindset than a circumstance from the author's perspective? I'm going to get to that. I think I'm going to kind of go there at the end. Don't want to talk about that right now. So, and then Shantz says, most suicide attempts are a cry for help. Yeah, but everybody kind of knows that. But what does it mean to be a cry for help? Well, sometimes it's not even just a cry for help. It's a flee from reality. And he says one of the times that people would overdose was actually the night before they get a job. So they would get a job, and the day before they were supposed to start their job, they would take an overdose to ensure that they got fired. So this is a totally you're never going to escape this type of you're never going to escape your situation with this type of mentality, right? It's totally willfully avoiding responsibility and doing everything in your power to absolve yourself of that. So you take an overdose right before the day you're set to go into work to ensure that you are going to remain unemployed, remain on unemployment, and continue to receive government benefits. And then there's other people that go there because they're trying to avoid abusive partners. You know, they said it was either I come home and get beaten, or I leave and get raped on the street. So I'll just take an overdose so I can be inside the hospital, which is, you know, a little bit more tragic, but also not the right solution that you want to see to a situation like that. So yeah, plenty of overdoses going on for a variety of reasons that are all not successful. Then, reader, she married him, alas. That was the next essay. And this is kind of about a critique of multiculturalism, partly. He talks about how in the UK you have this growing Indian, Pakistani population, very traditional. So you have the traditionalist Muslims as well as the Sikhs and the Hindus. And partly here you have conflict between the groups. So you have Sikhs and Hindus that hate each other and have, honor killings between each other. If you are a Hindu woman, if you are the Sikhs and Muslims, if you are a Sikh woman and you are around a Muslim man, the Muslim man's going to get killed and you're going to be beaten, and vice versa if it's a Muslim woman around Sikh men. And he says that this is an issue with multiculturalism because you're bringing these people away from their culture, but they're not assimilating. They're living in these neighborhoods that are totally ethnically homogenous, and they are not conforming to the UK society. They're bringing over their same problems, their same traditions, and their same brutal tactics. The beatings and the arranged marriages and things like that. And the main story here was about I think it was a Pakistani woman who was forced to marry her cousin who was raised as her brother, and just very kind of a tragic story. She ended up leaving him, but she was trying to avoid getting beaten by her parents. And then there's a whole honor killings thing. Sometimes you'll actually get killed if you ruin your family's honor. And then all to wrap this up, these people end up never going to school. So you have this education system that sort of works as a assimilation tactic. Well, they will go to school once every 3 weeks to keep the Department of Education away from you, because if you're showing up once every 3 weeks, it's well, at least they kind of know where you are, but you're not actually learning anything. You're not participating in the society, and altogether, you have this liberalizing influence from the education that is not going to go towards your children. And while plenty of us argue whether it's good or bad to have that liberalizing influence, altogether it just means you're not assimilating, right? And if you're not assimilating, how are you ever going to move up inside of this culture? You're always going to be part of this underclass, like he says. So it's one of those things that, the liberal bourgeois type thinks that multiculturalism is ultimately good, but they never actually see what is going on at the bottom. They don't see the honor killings. They don't see the beatings. They don't see the arranged marriages. They don't see any of this. Or they do, and they willfully ignore it, like you do see in the UK, the outright denial of things like I think it was the Rotherham scandal that happened. So very messed up stuff. Then I think this might have been the best essay of them. It was called Tough Love, and it was basically talking about how romantic relationships have been totally destroyed for these people within the underclass, and he blames it mostly on the sexual revolution. So he says this liberal idea was to remove everything from sex besides the hedonistic pleasure of it, right? So we're going to have contraception, and we're going to have abortion, which basically means that there's no more consequences of sexual relationships. So you can just have sex with whoever you want, and it's not a big deal, and everybody's going to be much happier because of it. And perhaps the liberal types managed to come out on top of this, but the underclass certainly has not. Because, and as he says here, you can't escape the reality of, one, differences between men and women, and then two, emotions and what actually happens psychologically, right? So a man is not ever going to stop being jealous. So just because you can sleep around on him with no consequences doesn't mean that he's not going to beat the shit out of you, which is tragic. And I'm not saying that this is an encouraging thing, but it's also this is a thing that happens. This is something that is happening at the lowest level of society, and infidelity is going to be punished in a much more severe way. And even worse than that, I mean, look, that's bad, but once again, you could blame certain things like patriarchy or whatever. But ultimately, what happens is you have homes where the children are not being taken care of, and you are not seeing a true relationship. You're not seeing a relationship filled with love. You're probably seeing abuse, and then you're going to go on to be abused or be an abuser yourself, right? This is cycles of abuse at its most central, because without strong families, there's nothing to avoid any of this. But then ultimately, he talks about how women always play the victim in this case, but they're totally trying to absolve themselves of agency once again, because they're intentionally seeking out men who are not good. And he talks about how if he talks to a woman that comes to him who's been totally abused, and he says, well, did you have any signs that he was going to be an abuser? And she'll say, no, of course not. Well, he says, well, do you think I, as a clinical doctor, could have figured out he was an abuser? And she'll say, oh, of course, you would have noticed this, 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 and this. So she's revealing the fact that she did notice all of these signs. She just was in active denial that they were actually there. So some people might call this victim blaming, but he's calling it what it is, right? You are stuck in this cycle of making bad choices and then not being able to take responsibility for those choices and then continue making them. So the women will say, well, all men are bad and all men are going to beat me, so I may as well stay with this man who beats me because it's easier than finding a new man. Or it's easier than going out on the street and not having protection and getting raped, which is very it's disturbing, right? It's these are the choices left to a woman in the underclass. It's not good at all. Whereas if you had something like a strong family unit and extended families and families willing to protect their women, and this is another thing, and he doesn't so much talk about this, but this is a phenomenon, is, if you have older brothers or uncles or nephews or anything, if you have these men who are more physically strong, they will protect you. And if you are going to be in a rough situation, they can save you from that. It doesn't leave you with the choice of abuser or homeless. It leaves you the choice of living with an abuser or going back to your safe family. So once again, destruction of the family is ultimately the culprit here. And the sexual revolution is what has caused this destruction of the family. So that was a great essay. Then the next one was very well done too. It's called "It Hurts, Therefore I Am." And he's talking about tattoos. And he says that tattoo presence on the body is the single greatest indicator for criminal activity that he has seen. So, and this is back in the 90s. So tattoos were not as prevalent as they are today. And this is another thing he talks about, is how culture used to be top down. It used to be the elite bourgeois culture would work its way down to the lower classes. Well, now it's the exact opposite, which just shows that we're totally culturally bankrupt. You have the underclass culture that works its way up to the top. And now you have celebrities that are getting tatted up head to toe because that's in vogue right now. But he says, ultimately, what type of person wants to get a tattoo? And he says, well, there's both professional and amateur tattoos. And amateur tattoos, it's like extremely painful, and a lot of times it's a mark or a status symbol within the underclass community. And he even talked about one specific tattoo. It was like a blue dot underneath your eye that indicated being at a certain high security prison, which meant don't fuck with me. But then so many people started getting the tattoo for protection that now it doesn't really mean anything, right? Chad says, seems like a good idea to ask a person before dating them if they have any tattoos. Yeah, and this is something that's not in the book, but it actually correlates. People with tattoos have very poor impulse control and are much more likely to make rash decisions. This is statistically correlated. And once again, is that the type of partner that you want to be with? Probably not. But then ultimately, tattoos, and once again, it's another cyclical thing. You tattoo yourself and all of a sudden you're unemployable and you have to remain in this underclass, right? So it's one of those things you're almost choosing to prolong this cycle rather than making any attempt to escape it. But then ultimately, it's being encouraged from the top down now that this culture is being adopted, and instead of looked down upon, that they're not. Well, it's another situation where the bourgeois is pushing something and not actually witnessing the consequences of this. Casey says, it seems like all young people are getting tattoos these days. They even talk about how they're waiting to blow their next paycheck on another tattoo. Dude, it's absurd to me because they're very expensive and very time consuming. I have a bunch of students, like we're talking 16 to 18-year-old kids, like tons of tats. I'm like, what dumbass parents are letting you do this? Or are you getting a fake ID just to go to the tat shop? It's kind of ridiculous. But that's the whole deal with tattoos. I mean, I don't know if you need a whole essay to tell you that tattoos are bad. I mean, actually, some people do, and it is a good essay. Quick Google search says that 40% of people between 18 and 29 have a tat. That's absurd. That's like, damn. Well, it's easy to weed out people then, huh? 60% of people undateable. Actually, I'd probably say it's probably skews a lot higher for men. I would say at least 2 to 1. I would say of that 40%, I would say probably 25 to 30% is men. Maybe I should have tattooed maybe I shouldn't have tattooed my one night stand's name. Yeah, and this is something he talks about in the book, is how many of them have lovers' names, and then sometimes they will cross out the name in more ink. And then you also have this whole tattoo removal economy that's popping up alongside the tattoo economy. But once again, there's a very high price barrier to be able to remove these tattoos. So once again, even if you wanted to, you're still stuck in this cycle. It's like it's so easy to make it to the bottom and not easy to make it out. Shan says, not to mention the fact most of our celebrities, mainly in rap music, are just people from the underclass who have been chosen to be cultural icons by bourgeois culture makers as a way to promote this lifestyle. Bourgeois culture maker, that's a really, really long-winded way of saying Brazilian. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next one. He says, Festivity and Menace. That was the name of the next the next essay. So he talks about the club, going to the club, and this is like all of his patients. He says, he asks them what they do for fun. What are your interests? They have no interests. They have no skills. They have no hobbies. They don't like to do anything, which is a major symbol of not going anywhere, right? If you don't have any interests, hobbies, or skills, you're never going to be upwardly mobile in society. But when he does ask them what they're interested in, what they like doing, they just say going to the club. And once again, it's like living for this momentary, fleeting, hedonistic pleasure that ultimately leaves you broke and unhappy. And he told the story of a specific girl who said every single night she would go to this one rave and take ecstasy until 1 week she came in because she overdosed on ecstasy. And he says, well, why do you keep taking it? Because she said how much she hated it. She's like, well, why do you keep taking the ecstasy? And she says, well, I need to make it through the week, right? So your life is so miserable that you literally need this Dionysian night of pleasure, and that's the only thing you're really living for. And you have so many people. This is no longer relegated to the lower classes, right? This is everybody now. This is the middle class, the upper class. I mean, I have plenty of friends that are working on Wall Street, and this is what they do. They'll grind out 70, 80-hour weeks and then just get absolutely blasted Friday to Saturday. And it's like, what kind of lifestyle is this? Like, what exactly are you living for? What skills are you developing? What interests are you developing? And there's nothing there. But in the book, he talks about the UK club scene and how it's just very messed up and gross. And I don't think you really need to go too much into that, but just the fact that once again, it's another cyclical thing. You blow all your money at the club, and now you're broke and sad, and now you want to go to the club again. Dude, I keep thinking that one song. It was a really big song. He's like, I knew my rent was going to be late about a week ago, but I have just enough to get up in this club. It's like the worst. Like, that's the most subversive fucking Hollywood Brazilian shit ever. Because it's like you're encouraging people to waste their last dimes going to the club and like glorifying this lifestyle that is totally not sustainable and going to keep people in the fucking gutter. It's just so, I mean, this is where we are at as a society. I mean, come on. All right, a few comments here. Wow, I have tons of comments. I'm falling behind. Seems like taking God out of society was a real bad idea. Yep, who would have known? Work hard, play hard is the biggest cope ever. 100% agree. I would rather not work hard and then not play hard either. This is my play. This is what I do for fun. I like to talk to internet racists. That's pretty fun for me. They must think the world of Wall Street is everyone. I don't know what that's in reference to. It's a vicious circle too, because at the bottom, some of the best opportunities for talented people to get ahead involves crime. A few of my old friends who are pretty bright are deep into drug dealing now because they can scheme the game and outcompete the rest. Yeah, because, well, you really have two choices. You could be extremely diligent and get a low-paying job and save up and, give up certain comforts. Don't eat bad, don't drink a lot of alcohol, don't smoke cigarettes. And then after a few years of that, you'll probably have saved enough to escape your situation. Or you could go rob one bank or sell some drugs or commit forgery and try to buy a banana with a fake $20 bill. And you are going to, I mean, some people find success with that, but then any success they find, once again, they just blow it all away. Or they get arrested or killed by the police, right? Then, once again, it's society's fault because there was no other choice but to do this. Well, now there's plenty of other choices. It's the fact that it's not the easy choice. The easy choice is to make as much money as you can in the shortest amount of time. It's not easy to be diligent and dedicated over a long period of time. Casey says, I need to smoke weed every day. It calms me down. It helps me cope, man. Yep. But you're not addicted, though. Not addicted. Just gotta smoke it every day. Vape is the weed of younger Zoomers. Yeah, dude, they're blowing so much money on the fucking vape pens. It's ridiculous. The underclass understands what they need to do to escape their environment. They just don't have enough of a problem with their environment to be motivated in the first place. Very, very good point. Very good point. And this is something I think that the book is really good at showing, is that we've sort of normalized dysfunction. This is not the way that a society, any healthy society, should function. But we just see all this and we're totally okay with it. Like, we take this as par for the course. And we don't really think it's worth calling out, or we downplay what's actually going on, or in the liberal sense, we say that, just denial of the fact that, certain liberal policies have made this happen. But ultimately, life has increased in the sense that all of your needs are very easily accessible. Nobody's starving to death, right? These people are overdosing and going to the hospital, but they're not going hungry. They might be homeless, but they're still not hungry because, food is cheap, and, you sell 1 ounce of weed and that could feed you for 2 weeks, so there's not enough like natural selection at play that is actually going to get these people to move out of this scenario, because they're totally happy in the cycle of quick money and then blowing it all on drugs, clubs, whatever. And the ones that are motivated many times get dragged down by the crab in the bucket mentality. Oh yeah, and you see this a lot in inner city areas, as soon as one black kid, he starts reading them books, he's one of them book reading nibbas, and then they'll bully him, they will harass him on his way to school because there's a certain amount of insecurity. But it's also like, if a person does succeed in that environment, then everybody else feels like they can no longer blame their environment. They are going to, that's why they don't want other people to succeed, because then it shows that the only reason they haven't succeeded isn't because of society, it's because they didn't try hard enough, or they weren't smart enough, or they weren't skilled enough. Right. So then you have so many people that are just kind of like fall into success. The rapper, the basketball player. These are things you don't really. I'm not going to say that these people don't work hard, but it's like, of all the people that do really well in school, I'd say 90% of them do well in life. Of all the people that do really good in basketball, 0.01% of them do well in life. But that's a little bit off topic. So, okay, we talked about the festivity and menace. Next one is, we don't want no education. So we're already kind of onto this, is that you have this underclass disdain for education. It's like, oh, there's nothing I can learn from being in school. And nobody wants to go to school. Nobody wants to get educated. And once again, I think that this is an interesting essay, because I don't know how much I agreed with it, because a lot of it is, do you really think that education is the problem here? I mean, I think it's partially the problem. I think if you did give somebody a good education, they're going to be better off than if they didn't. But also, I don't think education alone is enough to get somebody out of this cycle, especially in the state that education is right now. And this is something that he talks about, is you kind of, things you see in America, like No Child Left Behind, and nobody actually wants to deal with bad students. Nobody wants to have to acknowledge that this is a problem. I heard a story about some kid, I think it was in Washington, D.C. It was like the day before he was set to graduate, and he wasn't allowed to graduate because it turned out that he had failed like half of his classes. And they're like, well, why was he still a senior? Why was he still on the path to graduation? Why did nobody hold him back? Why did nobody reach out to the parents to tell them that he should go to school? Because you have total dysfunction on all sides, right? The parents aren't invested, the kid's not invested, and most importantly, the school isn't invested, and they are not going to oppress somebody by telling them that they're DMV phenotype. Yeah, exactly. Who's running the public schools? The DMV phenotypes. That's exactly who we're dealing with. But yeah, most importantly is the school fails because they're not actually paying attention to the kid, and even if they are paying attention to the kid, they're not allowed to actually do anything about it. They're not allowed to hold a kid back. They're not allowed to actually enforce a certain educational standard. And this is something I even see as a private school teacher. Because people are giving you a certain amount of money, you're going to allow a lot of shit to slide. And passing a class doesn't necessarily mean you have all the skills to pass that class. It means that we don't want to deal with you anymore, which is fucked up. I mean, it's like, and even I understand how I'm sort of participating in that. But in order for that to be fixed, you need a whole large-scale overhaul of education, which, I'm not going to get into right now. All right, some comments. Genuine self-actualization is shamed every step of the way. Got a hunch it's on purpose. Yeah, another Brazilian trick, I think. I hear that 13% of students are actually failing high school. So sad. That's a very interesting number. I wonder where you got that one. Learn Holocaust history for the 4th time and take your ACT prep. Don't think. Too many women teachers. Yeah, so both of these make good points. For one, women teachers, especially in the inner city, no good. Young kids, this is another reason ADHD is a problem, because how's a woman going to respond to that? She's going to be like, oh, it's okay, do your thing. Okay, if you have a strong a dominant man and a kid's not paying attention, he's going to slam his fist on the desk and say, sit the fuck down, pay attention now, right? And I use specifically inner cities as an example, because I've talked to people who have taught inner city, taught public schools, some of the worst areas you could imagine, and they'll straight up tell me, and these are even like liberal types, like not like your base types. They'll say the only person that could teach these kids, that these kids are going to listen to, is a large, dominant black male, because they're not going to respect anybody who's white, and they're not going to respect anybody who's a woman, and the fact that, we as a society try to pretend that race doesn't exist when these kids are totally aware that race exists and totally have racial solidarity, whereas adults don't. It's clown world, as they say. Women shouldn't teach above elementary school, IMO. Well, to be honest, we need more male elementary school teachers too. And the fact is, no men want to teach elementary school, because it does kind of suck, and it's not really a good place for us. But if your only exposure to an adult from the ages of 0 to 14 is female role models, you're going to end up being feminized. That's just a fact of life. I made a female substitute quit teaching in 8th grade, and I do not regret it. All right, well, and this is another tangent. I had a 4th grade teacher who I was literally smarter than. And I'm not saying that like to brag. I'm saying like that's like tragic. Like if I'm a 4th grader and I'm like correcting every single mistake that you're making, like it was math class, and like I would have the answers and she wouldn't. Like she'd be messing up like basic arithmetic. It's like, this is the quality of education that our kids are getting. And this was a private school. Jesus. Babies recognize race and facial attractiveness at like weeks old. LOL. Yep. If these students don't even have a father to recognize as an authority figure at home, and this is another big deal, right? Yeah, if you don't have a parental authority, if you don't have a person that's forcing you to do your homework, forcing you to even go to school in the first place, you're not going to succeed. It's all of these things sort of compile, and he takes each of these essays that kind of isolates one aspect of the society, but there's so much more to it as a whole, right? You add all of this together, and it really does, it's just a totally terrible, almost inescapable situation. Demographics play a big role in this too. Well, okay, you had to go there, buddy. You had to go there. Well, we'll talk about that at the end. True, it shouldn't be only women, just it makes more sense for them to teach lower grades due to their maternal instincts. Okay, I agree with that. Women teachers will get pregnant on purpose for the sole purpose of paid maternal leave. That's, honestly kind of based. Try to milk every dollar you can from the government and have more children. So I'm not gonna look down upon them for abusing maternal leave. I think everybody should be abusing maternal leave. As soon as I get paid paternal leave, I'll be popping them out like nothing. All right. This is a lot of good discussion today. This has been probably the best stream. And I don't know, I probably shouldn't say that on the stream, because then it kind of like jinxes it, but whatever. Next one is called Uncouth Chic, and this is basically talking about how you have this underclass culture that is working its way up the ladder. And he talked about a famous football player who was, covered in tattoos, beating his girlfriend, beating his new girlfriend, and then the ex-girlfriend is like, sucks to suck. It was like, I don't even know, this was probably a big thing in the 90s, but I didn't even know who he was referring to. But now it's like this with all celebrities, celebrity culture is just like trash culture now. Like examples of this. Well, look at these NFL players, these are, or even basketball players. These are like our role models for our kids, and they're like, you have Ray Rice just fucking punching out women, Kareem Hunt, you have Chris Brown, right? And now I feel a racist because I only have black examples, but I'm sure there's trashy. Oh, you have like Machine Gun Kelly, like covered in tattoos and shit. Like, the whole upper class culture is just now like ghetto culture. Like they're indifferentiable from each other. ghetto culture and upper class culture. And I've noticed this like in my vocabulary and how I talk. It's like white culture is just like black culture like 5 years later. like first black people were saying things like swag, and then like all of a sudden white people start saying it, and then it was like bruh, and now it's like finna, or like all these like slang words. But then it's also like clothing, like snapbacks, what else, like these like streetwear brands, like they're very like ghetto. All of these things, yeah, it's working its way up, and I say like black to white culture because in America underclass culture is black culture, and that's just a fact, right? You can't really escape that. So white culture is just adopting everything from black culture. And this is another thing, it is also destructive because ultimately like people say things like whites have no culture. Well, it's becoming like increasingly true, right? There is no white slang, there is no white way of dress, right? It's just kind of like everything is like lowering itself to like this lowest common denominator of black culture, and just becoming more and more like progressive, like loose, and it's just a total cultural collapse. So having kids and scamming the government is very based. Totally agree. Having a 10-year career and being pregnant 9 years of it sounds really based. Yes. Entertainers used to be on the same level as prostitutes in ancient Greece. I did not know that. That's kind of cool. We should return to that. Basketball shorts do be lit though. Alright, basketball shorts are peak white culture, okay? Don't even get me started. You know why? You don't sag basketball shorts. You could take that one to the grave. Bring back white slang like a negroid. That is peak white slang. We need that. And mongoloid. I still use the word mongoloid a lot. Not like in like my daily vocabulary, but like if I'm like calling my friend, or like instead of retard, I'll be like, you fucking mongoloid. 13% of people make up 50% of the cultural content of American society. Wow, this joke is really funny, and it's gonna remain funny forever. You should just keep saying it. It's never gonna stop being hilarious. White boy summer is the last stand of white identity. Now this is like I mean, it's kind of a joke, but it's also like, it might even be true. I mean, there really is no like white identity anymore. All right, I'm loving this stream. This has been very hilarious. All right. This is a really interesting essay. The Heart of a Heartless World. So he talks about religion and the place it is taken as a society, and I think he says, all in all, I mean, he sees a decline on religion, but then he sees a very devoted base among certain members of the underclass. And he talks about this one Nigerian Protestant church that is full of people, right? And he says that this has been kind of a corruption of what the church was supposed to be, and now it just kind of feeds into this same underclass mentality. And it's even kind of tying into stuff like Nietzschean slave morality and things like that that he talks about. But you just imagine you have a underclass person who's in and out of jail and repeatedly making bad decisions, and now they're going to go to church that says, we are all sinners and fate is outside of our hands, and we need to pray to God in order to be good people, but we're always going to be forgiven for when we do sin. So while this is kind of a really, like, I don't want to say bastardization, but like you're taking a lot of gratuity with the message of the church, but at this very surface level, this is only going to continue to propagate this underclass mentality, right? This victim status, saying I am a flawed individual, I'm not in control of my actions, and everything that I do that lands me in and out of prison, not only is it forgivable, it's also inescapable. And I'm going to continue to be this way because I am a flawed person with original sin. And so you have this totally distorted message of what the church should stand for. But also you have people attached to that because they don't really have any more sense of community. So in one sense, it is a good thing because you have people that are getting shot all around you, yet you have this one place where people can get together and be safe, right? And that's a good thing. But then he talks about other communities that sort of take that and abuse that as well. Something called, it was like the something army. I don't remember what it was called. But it essentially was like a commune, and people just lived as like monks, but they like weren't allowed to get money, and like they had to like apply for any kind of anything that would cost money, like even like a candy bar. It says he has to go all the way to the top and justify how the candy bar is going to help God's kingdom. So you have this totally messed up like communal style churches that were really destructive, because it's kind of like you're getting people to try and escape from this underclass, but then you're actually just taking advantage of them and using them as like free labor. So very messed up. So Shamp says, Prot theology puts no responsibility on the believer. True. People need to remember that to be forgiven, you need to not only ask for forgiveness, but act better for it. Redemption is gained through actions. Yeah, and it's almost like when people say in reality, if you apologize, that means you actually feel remorse and are going to change your actions. Otherwise, I'm not going to accept your apology. Well, religion is kind of the same way, believe it or not. Faith without works is dead, and vice versa. Also cringe, faith controls us all, and we have no choice belief. Yeah, that is kind of Calvinist bullshit at its finest. So I think I know what Marx meant when he wrote that religion is the sigh of the oppressed, the heart of a heartless world, the opium of the people. Of course, he misidentified the oppressor. In present-day England, it is not the bloated plutocrat, it is your drug-dealing, rock music-playing, baseball bat-wielding neighbor. So this is a quote from the book. Very good, right? So it's not that, it's not this top-down pressure, it's this bottom-up pressure. You're forced into this community because of the terrible situation you find yourself in as being a member of the underclass. All right. So, good chapter on religion. And then the last one, there's no damned merit in it. So the final essay was about gambling and how gambling is bad. And I guess, do you really need an essay to tell you how gambling is bad? Well, the essay is good because it shows the extent of how bad this is. And he says that he estimates that like 1% of the population is gambling all of their money away 24/7. So it's like you have these people, right? It's like sort of like the club thing. As soon as you get your money, you're running off to the club, and you blow it all, and then you're like, shit, I wasted all of that, and now I have nothing to show for it. Well, the gambling is the exact same way. You get like this momentary high, this rush of dopamine, and then you're broke. And it's like, and nobody ever quits while they're ahead. He tells the story of a person who did roulette and he won twice on the same number, and he decided to risk it all on the same number again, and what do you know, he lost. And he talks about how this is like the exact same story of Dostoevsky's The Gambler, which I haven't read, but sounds like an interesting book. And this is a personal anecdote from me. When I worked construction, I had a dude on my construction crew. He was a base head. He was a methadone user, former crackhead, and his new drug of choice was scratch-offs. And every single payday, he would run right to the gas station and just spend like half his paycheck on scratch-offs. And most of the time, he would lose. And I said the worst thing that ever happened to him was the one day he won. He won $10,000. And he paid off a bunch of debt, and he had spent all of the $10,000 within 2 weeks. I actually couldn't believe it. And I'm like, this is the worst thing that could have happened, because now he's just going to continue. Now that he's won, he's going to continue to buy the fucking scratch-offs, and he will never actually be able to escape the poverty that he finds himself in, right? So the underclass, would bottom-up pressure be able to exert its influence without being propped up by the top, though? Like, isn't ghetto culture only so successful because it's pushed and not organic? Well, and I think this is what it ultimately comes down to. So how is this type of lifestyle allowed to survive? Because it is encouraged by the upper class, right? This is sort of the final logical conclusion of the liberal mentality, like this bourgeois liberalism, right? This is the final product and consequences of the sexual revolution. This is the final product and consequences of the removal of religion, the destruction of the family, the total submission to pleasure. You have people that cannot escape the pleasure and just live for the hedonism. Peace Leaf says, just win, LMAO. Yeah, the underclass was enabled by the top through relativist attitudes at the top. Yeah, basically what I said. It went full circle, and now the top and the underclass are the same. Yeah, so ultimately, you have a certain people. So this is back in the 90s, right? So these people are living in total Sodom and Gomorrah degeneracy, and it's like obviously very, very bad for them, but you have enough of an overclass that you can totally ignore it. Whereas now, as it's creeping its way up to all facets of society, that now like the middle class is either non-existent or becoming the underclass culturally, and the upper class has been totally culturally underclass, but enough insulated from money that they still don't need to acknowledge any of these problems. Now you're seeing the real late stage consequences of this, because it's gotten into all aspects of society and all classes. So if there are no standards, by default the standards that are going to be propped up are the most common and lowest of all standards. We should read The Gambler for book club sometime. Yeah, that sounds cool. In a similar vein, one of my friends blows half his paycheck on risky stocks, which is barely any better than... That is a gambling addiction. It's not barely any better. It's literally a gambling addiction. I mean, that is just gambling. Even the slightest profit is a massive dopamine rush. Buy Doge. Buy... Bro, diamond hands. Upper class are just poor people with money. Kind of true, exactly. And so along the lines of the stocks thing, this is actually a big deal. I don't know if you guys listen to Come Town, but Nick Mullen talked about how he blew $50,000 on crypto. It's like, how do you do that? And it's like, even people at the high levels of society now, they're doing the exact same thing. They're gambling away their money. They're going to the club and spending thousands of dollars. They are getting cowboys. They're doing. I said hi cowboy. I didn't see you, but they're getting tattoos. They're doing all of these self-destructive, lower class things, and it's pervaded to all levels of society. Oz, what do you think happened to real rich people? I think they all moved to Brazil. Brazilians are the real rich people, and they live totally insulated from any of this. And that is why they continue to let it happen, because it keeps the rest of us non-Brazilians totally weak. That is my professional opinion. Alright, so that was the entire book. I don't know, if you guys want to hang around, I have a bunch of quotes that I really liked that I wanted to go through. But this stream has already been we're going on an hour now, but I mean, hey, if you guys are wanting to hang around, I'll keep reading. But I will also open up the phone lines if anybody wants to hop in there. Alright. So I'm now hanging out in the Discord if anybody wants to pop in, and in the meantime I'll read these quotes. So, where fashion and clothes, bodily adornment, and music are concerned, it is the underclass that increasingly sets the pace. Never before has there been so much downward cultural aspiration. So yeah, we talked about this, but this is, just in one concise sentence telling us that, yeah, everything is moving downward rather than moving upward. Well, culture is moving downward because it is being derived from the lower class, if that makes sense. You have this upper classes deriving their culture from the lower classes. So there was that quote. Next one. It's really hard to get between notes on my Kindle, so sometimes it takes a little while. Okay, this is a long one, but it says, "It is worth examining the mental mechanisms that liberal intellectuals use to disguise the truth from themselves and others, and to ask why they do so. First, there is outright denial. Increasing crime, for example, was long dismissed as a mere statistical artifact, before the sheer weight of the evidence overwhelmed the possibility of denial. It wasn't so much crime that was increasing, we were told, as people's willingness or ability to report it, via the spread of the telephone. As to educational failure, it was long denied by the production of statistics showing that more and more children were passing public examinations. A classic half-truth that omitted to say that these examinations had deliberately been made so easy that it was impossible to fail them, the concept of failure having been abolished, except by not turning up for them. But even the most liberal of university professors has now noticed that his students can't spell or punctuate. And holy crap, do I live with that, dude. I have seniors in high school that can't, if I give them F is equal to MA, they can't solve for A. They can't just solve for X. It's you are a senior at a private school about to go to college. Or I'll ask, last year I had students, I said they could write an essay in physics for an extra credit assignment. And I actually couldn't believe that these people were writing at a third grade level. It's incoherent. And I'm not trying to claim I'm a complete fucking genius, but I was writing at a pretty high level when I was 18. And I remember I took a college writing class and we had to proofread other people's work. And every other person in the class was in the very first sentence, it's 5 spelling mistakes and a run-on sentence. I'm this, and the whole thing is just that. I'm nobody here knows how to fucking write. And it's tragic. It's the schools are totally failing these people because these are private schools, Good grammar is gay and Brazilian. That is actually what people think though. Now, and I think he talks about this in the book. It's in America, they say that things like good grammar and talking well is racist, and you see this. And there he says, in UK they can't call it racist, but they call it bourgeois, and this totally relativist liberal mentality is saying that none of this, you're just enforcing these arbitrary standards, and any standard is good, right? So it's the total perils of relativism, One of my favorite points that he makes is that relativists in academia don't live a relative lifestyle. Nobody lives a relative, that's the quote that you're about to say. Nobody, of course, experiences himself as sociologically determined. Certainly not the sociologist. Yeah, nobody does. Except for the poor people. They actually do. They say, I'm a product of my environment, product of my circumstances, and I can't escape this cycle. Whereas the upper class never sees themselves this way. And some people say they should see them this way, whereas I would say that nobody should see themselves this way, right? Communication and critical thinking skills are racist. We're literally at this point. It's not even a joke anymore. So, yeah, that's the future. That's the clown world we live in. Okay, another long one. And so, if family life was less than blissful, with all its inevitable prohibitions, frustrations, and hypocrisies, they called for the destruction of the family as an institution. The destigmatization of illegitimacy went hand in hand with easy divorce, the extension of marital rights to other forms of association between adults, and the removal of all the fiscal advantages of marriage. Marriage melted as snow and sunshine. The destruction of the family was, of course, an important component and consequence of sexual liberation, whose utopian program was to have increased the stock of innocent sensual pleasure, not least among the liberators themselves. It resulted instead in widespread violence consequent upon sexual insecurity and in the mass neglect of children, as people became ever more egotistical in their search for momentary pleasures. Damn, that is so incredibly based, like really one of the most based paragraphs ever. And what I do like about this is it is kind of secular. Like I would guess that Theodore Dalrymple is religious, but a lot of these logical arguments that he's making are totally secular. He's saying, no, it's not anything spiritual, it's purely a material problem, right? You created this problem, you cannot escape these material consequences of the sexual revolution, which I think is, once again, I think this is a great way to this is what Funky Time said, and why he suggested the book. This is one of his first introductions to like a more red-pilled philosophy, right? I think this is a great way to like ease in your parents or like other normie con types in your life. I would definitely recommend that they read this book. Okay, there was a few more good ones. We're gonna get there. The emotions that surround most overdoses are simultaneously intense and shallow in modern welfare states, and the struggle for subsistence has been abolished. In Africa, where I have also worked, the poor engage in a cruelly demanding battle to obtain water, food, firewood, and shelters for the day, even in the cities. The battle gives meaning to their existence, and another day lived without hunger in, say, Kinshasa is a personal triumph of a kind. Survival there is an achievement and grounds for celebration. This is not so in my city, in which subsistence is more or less assured, irrespective of conduct. On the other hand, there are large numbers of people who are devoid of either ambition or interests. They thus have nothing to fear and nothing to hope, and if they work at all, it is in jobs that provide little stimulus. Without religious belief to imbue their existence with transcendental meaning from without, they can provide none for themselves from within. What then is left for them? Entertainment and personal relationships. Once again, amazing quote, and really shows what exactly we're dealing with. So this is even like a Ted Kaczynski talking point, right? He talks about how once your survival needs are met, you are totally lacking in like the will to live, and you're just left with these. He calls them what is it? Something like surrogate activities, right? So the surrogate. Oh, hey, buddy.
What is it?
Why am I echoing?
Surrogate activities, right? So
Oh, God, Satanta, you need to mute yourself. There you go, dumbass. Okay, so you have these surrogate activities. Hey, you can come back, and if you just like put on push to talk, it'll be okay. What was I gonna say? Oh, so you have these surrogate activities, and for the lower class, that's going to be sex, right? And which is going to ultimately lead to ultimately bad things, right? That's what leads to, domestic abuse and then fucked up children. But then the other thing here is he talks about religion, right? So you have religion pushing this, he says, from without, right? So like this top-bottom pressure to find value through religion if you can't find it in survival, which is something that I think that Kaczynski totally discounts, but he's actually bringing it up here. But the flip side to this, though, is religion enough to give you meaning in life when subsistence is so easy? Which is a much larger argument, but this is kind of why I'm like leaning towards like a distributist agrarian type philosophy, because it should be harder. Okay, sorry. It should be a lot harder to survive. And if it is harder to survive and you do have slight like natural selection pressure, I think people are ultimately going to be happier. Although I'm not 100% sure about that. I can only hope. Okay. So it looks like we got people wanting to talk. So Civ, you have some things you want to say?
I always wondered why a lot of my schools, they seem to allow these children to graduate And I'm like, why? Why can't we hold them back? And then you say this, and you say that earlier, and I'm like, oh, it makes total sense now.
Yeah, and this is something. I mean, it's really bad in far as like public inner city schools, but don't think that this isn't going on in private schools. You know, it's like, okay, you gave us however much money, we're going to make sure your kid graduates, whether they deserve it or not. You know, and even stuff like I've seen kids that definitely should have gotten expelled end up not being expelled because their parents are rich, and it's like it doesn't really matter in the end because college is going to expel them. So it's like they're no longer our problem anymore. Who else had did you have anything more you wanted to say, Siv? All right.
I'm thinking. I just had it on the tip of my tongue, and I already forgot.
All right. Well, while you think about that, I think I actually had one or two more quotes, and there were a few really good ones. So I want to make sure we get to this. This was probably the best one. The idea that it is possible to base a society on no cultural or philosophical presuppositions at all, or alternatively, that all such presuppositions may be treated equally so that no choice has to be made between them, is absurd. Right? And he just puts it plainly. This totally relativistic mindset is totally destructive. There is nothing there, and society has to be built on something. You can't have total and complete relativism. Total and complete relativism, if anything, is just total and complete nihilism. It's like masked nihilism, and ultimately there is nothing, and you're going to get exactly what we have now, which is just this empty, kind of dead, hedonistic society.
I think okay, our real the real rich people. What happened to them? Were they always like this, or did our the best of us just go somewhere else? Because it was supposed to be the best of society rules society, right? And then, well, as you can see, I wouldn't exactly call someone like Jay-Z the best of society.
Well,
or Biden, for that matter.
Well, there was like, if you look like long term historically, like let's go back to like the Middle Ages. Like, what is a rich person? Well, you're not rich like because you work hard. You're not rich. You're rich because you're nobility, right? Which is ultimately a certain class with a certain culture to it. And like going back to last week's discussion, right? You're kind of sanctioned by God in a way, right? So like you become noble through like strong bloodline that has been chosen for greatness in this like philosophical way, right? And so that is naturally going to have an air of pride and dignity to it. And the lower classes are going to want to aspire to be that. They're going to want to look upwards as to how to present themselves. They're going to want to dress and act like the nobility, and they're going to want to attempt to emulate noble culture. Okay? So now fast forward to industrialization, and now that our economy isn't 99% agrarian, you will have people that are becoming rich, sort of like rags to riches through differing methods. They're not noble now, they are entrepreneurs, they're businessmen, they're intelligent, right? They're intelligent and they're skilled, and that is going to be like really good for a little while. You're going to have like this class of like Rockefellers and Vanderbilts that still have this like air of intelligence and dignity and pride, and you're going to aspire to be like them, right? And but this also shows this sort of change, though, because there's only so much of that can occur, and then ultimately this accumulation of wealth that we saw has never been unaccumulated, and those same Rockefellers and Vanderbilts just passed down their wealth, and now like the truly richest people in the world now are not really self-made. I mean, you have the occasional story like a Bill Gates or a Jeff Bezos, but if you look at any of the other billionaires, they're like hedge fund managers, right? You think they just made it there on merit? No, you have this totally separate rich class that is no longer merit-based, that is no longer divinely mandated, that is no longer there for any reason other than pure heredity, or even worse, pure self-serving selfishness, right? And while maybe you could have had this argument with like medieval times, like royalty is going to also degenerate, but it can be replaced. Whereas degenerated nobility today is still rich, and there's nothing that we can do about it. So now you have this sort of degenerated rich upper class that is also kind of grooming these other like Bill Gates and Bezos types into the same club of total nihilism, because these people don't have, because they don't they don't have merit, like because they didn't get to where they are based on their own skills or abilities, they don't really believe in anything. They're totally nihilistic relativists, and then because of that they're going to be totally liberal. And this is kind of a simplification because there's going to be so many other things that go into that, religion, ethnicity, and certain demographic things. But I think ultimately that's what's led to a degeneration here, is once you adopt this level of nihilism, all that's kind of left is this bottom tier, lower class culture. I don't know if that's a satisfactory answer or good enough, but I don't know. What do you think about that?
So they're basically a corrupted version of nobility.
Yes.
like the Antichrist version.
Yes, the Antichrist version, and that's why we hate the Antichrist.
Yep.
All right. Well, a few other people wanted to hop in. I know, Satanta, your mic was echoing, but I can always just, if you just do push to talk, then that's not a big deal. You won't echo. So if you want to come back, and then I think somebody else was here too, but I don't know. And then Siv, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think that was it.
All right. Then I have one last quote if nobody else wants to hop in. This is in the last chapter of the Sexual Revolution. The last sentence of the Sexual Revolution chapter, he says, "For the sexual revolution has turned the poor from a class into a caste, from which escape is barred so long as that revolution continues." Is it caste or caste? I've heard both. So don't call me an idiot if it's supposed to be caste. "For the sexual revolution has turned the poor from a class into a caste, from which escape is barred so long as that revolution continues." So right, the only way to escape from this scenario would be to have strong families, strong relationships, parental relationships, and then you would want to add in religion there. And as long as this cycle keeps perpetuating, it's never going to be escaped. Okay. There's actually a lot more that I did want to talk about with this, but we can save it for next week. We have a whole nother week to discuss this book. How great is that? This has been a really good stream, guys. We had peaked at 12 viewers, and we had tons of people active in the chat. That's what I love to see. So thanks a lot, guys. It was a really fun stream today. I wish that they could all be like this. It looks like Casius hopped in. So Casius, if you have any comments.
Yeah, I think this book makes a great case that really intentional political systems and even a strong religious aspect culture is very important, because the masses of the people, if led even a little bit towards degeneracy, I guess, will just take the reins, and even the high culture will be subject to these Dionysian forces.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before, and plenty of other people have talked about it, but he does really good of showing it in, like, I would say, I don't want to say like a purely material sense, but that's kind of what it is. He's saying, in a purely pragmatic way, this is why you need religion, right? So he's not really resorting to any, like, theologic or philosophical arguments. He's saying, without this draw towards something higher, you're going to live in this dysfunction, where the only thing that really ultimately matters is this supplying of your basic needs, which really isn't that hard. So then, like, once you're fed, it's like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And all of that ends up being, gambling, drugs, tattoos, and promiscuity.
Yeah, I like the subtitle to the book, The Worldview That Makes the Underclass.
So, well,
it's all a symptom of greater forces that, the underclass doesn't understand, and therefore is just completely subject to its...
The Brazilians.
Brazilians, yeah.
So, now, this is honestly... Okay, so, this is probably going to, like, make the stream go another 10 minutes, because I wanted to... I mean, I kind of wanted to save this for next week, but I almost don't like the subtitle, because it's claiming that this is purely a worldview. Because, I mean, yes, to a high degree it is a worldview, but after several generations of this, at what point do you acknowledge genetics and IQ in this, right? Because he's even said, how he can, he can reason through with a person, like, why they're making the wrong choice, and, like, what choice that they should make, and how, and, like, it will explicitly tell them how to escape this world, right, this underclass world, and yet they still go back on the same things. And how much of that is going to be due to, like, low impulse control, low IQ, and genetic factors like that. So I guess I don't want to get, like, too much into it right now, but this is, like, the one failing that I think the book... Well, I guess I don't want to call it a failing, but I think the fact that he's not even bringing this up is a plausible factor. Because, I mean, I haven't read, like, the bell curve, but I think it talks about a lot of the exact same things, but through the lens of IQ. Right? It says you see all these behaviors and this total underclass mentality, and rather than it be linking to anything purely socioeconomic or based on philosophy or worldview, it's based on IQ and genetics. So, I don't know what you guys think about that.
Yeah, I mean, we can dig deeper, I guess, next week when we finish the book.
Yeah.
He seems to hold complete... He puts all the responsibility in the personal responsibility of these individuals, and he doesn't really acknowledge that, they're not entirely on even his level. He calls everyone intelligent, but sometimes it just seems sarcastic, like he knows they're not.
Yeah, I know. I totally noticed that too, and I'm glad you brought that up, because he does say this is like, well, in talking to this person, I could tell that they were very intelligent, which I think is kind of like coping, because, I mean, I don't know. I always say this to certain people. It's like, it's not that hard to not be, like, homeless. Like, I'm trying to find the best way to word this, but it's like, what is separating you from a homeless person right now isn't a house. It's a lot more than a house. It's you have a certain mentality, a certain intelligence, a certain work ethic, and that is never going to be taken away from you. And if I did take everything away from you, if I, took away your job, your house, and all of your money, like within a couple months, you'd probably be back on your feet because of the person you are, and not specifically you. I just mean a functional person, a person who functions in greater society. And some people are going to be very resistant to that idea, but I'd be like, I don't think that the reason I'm not homeless is because, of my upbringing, Well, maybe you could say I'm educated through school, but I would also say, a certain amount of that is just common sense and intelligence, and you can't teach that, and you can't teach work ethic, and you can't teach discipline. So I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely. Genetics has a part in it. Not that it's entirely predetermined. I would definitely hold some level of personal responsibility. But yeah, for sure, there's a lot of other factors.
All right, so I'm way behind on chat, but I'm going to try and catch up. Okay, do you guys ever feel like lower class people are more interested in wasting their money on expensive clothes and jewelry and stuff like that as a cope to feel like they're successful, and then they get into epic debt because they can't afford anything they own? Entirely. I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's this momentary, it's a moment where you can feel like you're not what you are, like you're not at the bottom of society, like you're not a loser. And like that's maybe that's not the nicest way of putting it, but that's how they want to feel. That's why, drug dealers, they wear all these fucking gold chains. There's this one dude, I'm not even going to go into it. It's going to take too long. So there's material wealth and then there's actual wealth. People who own a lot probably owe a lot. That's kind of interesting. I don't know where you were going with that. Casey, as you said, they lack the foresight to see that getting into massive debt might not be a good idea. Well, yeah, and somebody was talking about this a few weeks ago. They're like, I realize that most people are poor because they're fucking stupid. Like, they will take out like massive loans and they don't understand, how interest works and all this stuff. And for one thing, you could say, oh, well, the school didn't teach them what a loan is and how interest works. But like on the other hand, if you just have common sense and you're not a complete retard, there's no such thing as free money. There has to be some downside to this. And if you don't have the wherewithal to see that, then I think that's that's an intelligence problem. That's not an education problem. The more corrupt a society becomes, the more unqualified people gain power. Simple as. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, it's a little bit of a simplification, but ultimately, yeah, I think you're kind of right there. Okay, then so Siddhartha just wanted to put his stuff in chat because his mic isn't working. One thing that you quoted that I thought hit the nail on the head was the lack of inspiration in the lower classes. The best description of the lower class IMO is a lack of awe and wonder. Everything spiritual has been reduced to the mundane. Yeah, you don't really have moments in your life that are reflective of something greater, right? If the peak high is like literally a high, like getting drunk or gambling, like if that's the brightness in your life, that's the beauty in your life, that's pretty sad. You need to find beauty in other things like art or nature or like self-improvement, all of these things. Great stream, big guy. I'll watch them more often. Yeah, bitch, you should be watching these. I do it for you. I do it for the people, okay? You think I like this? I actually do like this. I like this a lot. I would do it all the time if I could. And yeah, it's more fun if more people show up. This has been a good discussion. There's no inspiration in art or philosophy or culture, music or sports or anything. Every inspiring piece of our lives has been stomped into something completely meaningless and without the sense of religious awe and immediacy that a spiritual outlook lets you have. Yes, I think that's a pretty profound point there. There is no There's no wonder. There's no beauty, and even in art, there's no beautiful art anymore. Nothing's beautiful. Nothing is like reaching towards something higher, right? We don't build cathedrals. We build office buildings.
Literal garbage.
Yeah, literal garbage. The upper classes aren't more religious per se, but they definitely have a connection with that sense of purpose and direction. I don't think well, maybe at a time that was true, because he's saying the upper classes have this religious connection, but the lower classes don't. I don't think that that's true anymore. I think that everybody is like we're just like this is like late stage liberalism, which is like just ending up being total and complete nihilism. Then I'm almost glad he doesn't mention genetics or race. Makes it more accessible to normies. Yeah, I don't think I'm not gonna say it's lacking. Like, I don't think it's like it's still good as a standalone work, but I think that certain people, are going to think that it doesn't go far enough, which I understand. And like I said, you're getting a good glimpse, and it's kind of like, entry level, but you can always go further with that. The homeless problem is 99% the drug problem. Just look at the stimulus. That's exactly what happened. Yeah, I mean, when was the last time you met a homeless person who was like not a drug addict? Like, they're literally all alcoholics or drug addicts, which is like sad, but it's also like a little bit hard to have sympathy, because it's never like, oh, that could be me. Well, actually, it couldn't be me, because I'm not a fucking retard. And that's just like really brutal, but like sometimes you have to look at things this way. My point was that people we perceive as wealthy probably aren't as wealthy as we think, because they live on a consumption treadmill rather than saving money. No, I think a lot of these wealthy people are exactly wealthy as you think, and probably wealthier. Like, I've heard like the Rothschild family has like over $1 trillion like spread among them, and that is not in debt. That is entirely in like hedge funds. Not like, which is like, maybe you could say like it could go to shit if like the stock market crashed, but no, I think they have enough like true assets that they're gonna be fine. Example, most lotto winners are broke several. You're saying lotto winners are a accurate depiction of the wealthy class? Come on, you're smarter than that. I mean, well, that's really is just more of this low class mentality, right? Most lotto winners are broke several years later. What's keeping them poor isn't lack of money, isn't lack of resources. It is their mentality. They put that drive into their careers, for example. It's not religious drive, but it's drive in response to the upper versus lower class thing. Yeah, I mean, you could say it's a religious drive in the sense that it's like transcendent. Like, you're not living for a purely material, fleeting feeling. You're trying to get some kind of self-actualization, some like true contentment. It's like spiritual joy, and that is going to lead to better decisions and more impulse control and things like that. All right, so we finally made it to the bottom of the chat. All right, this was a long one, but I think it was a lot of fun. I hope you guys had fun. So I'm gonna sign off. You guys, Civ and Cassius, if you have any last things you want to say, but I think we're gonna call it here.
Hold on, I got it. I just need to think of it. Would you say that these supposed rich people, like their whole basis of wealth, it's all based upon them. It's all based upon the modern world, right? And as soon as that just devours back into a more natural order, then they're gone. They're history, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, totally, which is why, dude, we're just gonna extend this stream infinitely because you keep asking good questions. But it's like, well, and then some people have talked about this. We're kind of like in the late stages, and this is why you're kind of seeing like desperate grabs for power, like the whole like build back better, and the New World Order with like the World Economic Forum and stuff, they really don't have the means to enact these changes. Like, we'll never actually, like, as much as we like scaremonger about this, like the
world government.
Yeah, the world government, like you won't own anything and you'll be happy, that whole essay that came out. As much as we scaremonger about that, they don't have the power to do this, and like people are going to like reach their breaking point long before. Well, maybe that's wishful thinking, but that's what I think. And what it really just shows is how desperate they are, that this is their final flailing attempts to maintain power, because they see on the horizon that chimp mode is coming. The final ape apocalypse is on its way. The decadence stage is always the last before the collapse of a culture. True. Very true. I don't think Funky was saying that is a representation of all wealthy people. I think he was saying that you would perceive that type of person as wealthy because they are wasting all their money and trying to make people perceive them as rich. Right, but there's not that many people. Like, that's like totally negligible to the point where, like, even as like a thought experiment, I don't know how relevant that is. And maybe I'm being like too harsh there, but I don't know. It's getting late.
Okay, I do have more questions, but I think I'm gonna wait till the next stream.
All right, yeah, because keep in mind we do have a whole nother stream, and there's going to be
just save all that for later. Then.
All right. Well, I appreciate you showing up, Casius. Thanks for hopping in. I'm gonna cut you guys loose. Actually, you can hang around and chat. I'm just gonna stop the recording right now. Just kidding. We have one more thing. Siddhartha says, will this collapse of our culture be unique, given our unique ability to bomb things? That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, you could say the bigger they are, the harder they fall, right? And I don't think it gets much bigger than where we're at right now. So perhaps it'll be a total and complete devastation, and that would make it pretty unique, I would say. All right, but stream out. If you have any more, if any more ideas come to you, we can talk next week. This was a lot of fun. I'll see you guys later.